Hello and welcome to our video. I'm David Test. I'm a professor of special education at UNC Charlotte and one of the co-directors of NSTAC, the National Secondary Transition Technical Assistance Center. I've been asked by Judy Shanley to do this video for our class, and she gave me 4 questions to answer as I was preparing this video. Here's the first question. Actually, the first question was, who are you and what is your background? But I really can't answer that because I don't know who you guys are. So I decided to change the question and talk about myself. I started out as a special ed teacher. I got my master's degree at Ohio State University, and then between my master's degree and my PhD, I taught at a juvenile correctional center in Columbus, Ohio. While there, I had a group of students who were not going to go back to school, so I started teaching independent living skills, functional life skills. For example, because these kids were interested in driving, while we couldn't teach them to drive, we could teach them to get their learner's permit so that eventually they get their license, and so they could be licensed if they were going to drive the getaway cars. At the same time, we taught them about check writing, and so if you're going to forge a check, you might as well do it correctly. It was kind of giving them life skills. So I was teaching, and I went back to Ohio State for my PhD. So if you know the Ohio State doctoral program, it's a behavior analysis program, and so I consider myself an applied behavior analyst who works in the field of transition. When I came to UNC Charlotte in 1983, yes, I know most of you weren't born then, I was given the course Career and Vocational Techniques, which was the transition course. And because of that, people thought I was an expert in transition. So as I told them, I was only 1 week ahead of them in the textbook, probably much like Judy is with you. But they laughed, and I knew that was the case. And then the Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools found out that I was teaching that class, and they also thought I was an expert. And they wanted me to write grants with them. And in 1985, we actually got one funded, and it was to do job coaching with a group of kids out of East Mecklenburg High School. And that was when support employment was just starting, and job coaching with high school kids for work experience was really new. And we were very popular because the kids loved to go to work. And they liked the income, and so that time sort of led me into transition. Since then, I've had numerous personal prep grants. I've been lucky enough to get some research grants, and currently I'm on one of the co-directors of NSTAC, the National Secondary Transition Technical Assistance Center. So that's my background. I could go much longer, as you probably can imagine, but in order to keep this short, the 5 minutes that Judy asked me to do, I'll stop there. So that's the first question. Who am I and what is my background? The second question is, what are the key components of a district-level transition program? Okay, I think we should start with a slide, and that would be the taxonomy. I think most of the key components of a district-level transition program, or a state-level one, focus on the taxonomy, developed by one of the co-directors of NSTAC, Paula Kohler, in the mid-90s. Stay on this slide. As you already know, I'm sure, the 5 components of the taxonomy are student-focused planning, which is around assessment and IEP development, student involved in the IEP. Student development is all the skills, from academic to vocational to social to independent living. That's where all the teaching kids skills are. Interagency collaboration, family involvement, and then the final piece, program structure, is all the things that have to happen in a district in terms of professional development, resources, community-based instruction, the things that will make a good transition program happen. That's under program structure. So that's the framework. Some of the things that Judy is having you look at. One is Mary Morningstar's assessment, which is basically based on the taxonomy, and it looks at transition planning, family involvement, student involvement, curriculum instruction, inclusion in school and access to general curriculum, interagency collaboration, and transition assessment. And those pieces either tie directly to or can be infused within the taxonomy. So using the assessment, Mary Morningstar's assessment, is an excellent place to start, and we'll give you some really good information on what a good district level program will look like. In our chapter in this wonderful textbook, which I'm glad Judy did assign to you, because if you have insomnia, this chapter will really help you get to sleep in the evening. For those of you that don't, I'm really sorry, but you'll get through it eventually. But in that chapter, it talks about different evidence-based practices, classroom instructional strategies that NSTAC has gathered from the literature, the experimental research literature, as well as predictors, evidence-based predictors of post-school success. There's 16 in this book. We've since established a 17th one, which is parental expectations. So those practices and predictors are excellent starting points for developing a program. The predictors tie directly to transition services that might be offered, as well as there's a predictor self-assessment on our website that, much like Mary's transition assessment, it can be used as a predictors that a school system could use to do a self-assessment. The practices, we also think, tied to IEPs in terms of once you've determined the goals and objectives, you may find lesson plan starters in our practices that will help teachers teach the skills that they need to do for their students. So I think between the predictor self-assessments on our website, Mary Morningstar's transition assessment, and the evidence-based practices, I think those are good foundations for any transition program. Okay. So the final two questions I'm going to do together, because I think they tie together. What are the leadership skills or practices that are important to sustain a high-quality transition program, and what words of wisdom or advice do you have for aspiring transition leaders, which would be you? First, I would start with the old adage, ask forgiveness, not permission. I think every good transition leader that I've ever known has been someone that is willing to go out to the edge for their students and their programs, and to implement things that they know are best and will work best to give students their desired post-school outcomes. So often that means going ahead and doing stuff, and then later on, if you get caught or somebody says something, just ask forgiveness and not permission. Second, I don't know whether Judy's going to talk about this in her class, but if you don't know about implementation science, I think you need to learn a little bit about it. Google it. There's some websites that are really good. The CISEP website and the NERN website both have really good information about implementation science. But implementation science is a new area that is helping to build sustainable programs, and that is really important, because when you look at programs at a school or at a district or even the state level, they're still very fragile. And so if one person leaves, you usually end up backing up and the program falls apart. And so we need to have programs that are built so that when a person leaves, the program can maintain and continue to get better with a new person, rather than having to start from scratch again. So implementation science and sustainability are really important. The next thing is to develop a strong interagency collaboration team around you. Transition requires interagency collaboration and teaming, and without that strong team, you're going to have a hard time doing it all. In fact, you can't do it all by yourself. So developing that partnership, those partnerships with families, within the school, then with the adult service agencies, is really important. Remember that transition is all about students and families. It's not about you and your program. Okay? You and your program should be developed to meet the needs of your students and their families. And finally, use your assessment data, your indicator 1, 2, 13, 14, other assessment data that you have to make database decisions in terms of program development. Then tie your action plan based on your assessment of your program, and you can use things like Mary's or the predictor self-assessment and those can also give you data in addition to the indicator data. But then build your programs on evidence-based practices and predictors that are in your chapter that you'll be reading for this course. So in a quick 5-minute nutshell, I hope, that's the bottom line that I hope you can appreciate. I have one more slide. You'd think this would have been an easy thing, but it wasn't. None of our machines worked. We had to go all over campus to find a machine that finally worked. So I have a special thank you to 2 of my doctoral students, Jennifer Cook and Lauren Bethune, and the NSTAC program manager or office manager, Flo Parkhill, for the hours of time it took them to help me make this 5-minute video. Thanks a lot and enjoy your course.